Gotta make sure this is official.
Burping again like crazy.
It's a little excessive. For sure. Alright, what's happening, party people? Welcome to Punchboard Party. My name is Daniel. This is Father Greg. We are working through our top 100 board games of all time for 2022.
That's right.
We are so excited. We've posted 2 videos so far, and we've gotten some feedback about those. This video here is going to be 80 to 71. But before we dive into it, we just kind of want to do a little banter with you folks about what you guys are thinking about the games we've chosen so far. So, Father Greg, what are you thinking about some of the love that we've received from our party people?
Yes, well, there's a lot of great comments. I really appreciate them. One comment said that, you want to hear about why people like the games. Not just a description of them. That you can watch a review video for that, but I appreciate that. So I'll be looking at specifically sort of why these games are on my list and why I like them. What about them kind of attracts them to me. So I think that was a good piece of advice.
Yeah, we're definitely going to take that advice and we're going to try and steer away from rules explanations and into just why these games are better than other games on the list and why they actually made it onto this list, the why behind these things. Mm-hmm. So we really enjoyed that for sure. So let's get into it. Father Greg, why don't you start us off tonight?
Sure. Well, my number 80 is a crossover with something that Dan mentioned on previously on one of his lists, and it was very nearly a double crossover. I think it was the very last game that you mentioned in your previous list, so you're 81, and that's Point Salad.
Wow, that is!
Yeah.
Wow, so, 2 almost exact crossovers.
We almost crossed over on Taco.
These drop kicks, man.
Yeah, they're coming. So yeah, Point Salad is another great example of that. This is a light game. This is... But it's a game that I've played a lot. I've played this game because it goes well. It plays well at 3 to 6 players. You can bring it out in nearly any atmosphere. It just goes over well. It's a great kind of so we said like a warm-up game. It fits that notion. But even as a game that I've played it 2 or 3 times in a row, and that's been like a majority of the game night, especially if you're kind of casual people, younger or older, just different age groups that are present. It really goes over well. The one complaint is like the theme is, sometimes I get like a salad that's like 8 onions and 2 carrots, and I'm like, this is not a salad, But other than that, it's a great game.
Yeah, the thing that I like, if we're actually talking about why I like this game, it's because I love multi-use cards in games, and this takes that mechanism of multi-use cards and pares it down to its simplest form. Where this card is either going to be used as points or it's going to be used as a component of your set in order to get the points. And you have to make that decision. And it's that decision of, do I want this card for a vegetable or do I want a points card? That one decision elevates this game so much for me. It makes me want to come back to it time and time again.
Right.
My 80. We played this game, Father Greg, in a beautiful situation. My firstborn child was in the NICU. And you came to visit. And we played this game in the waiting room. And this game is Mr. Jack.
Wonderful.
Isn't Mr. Jack just a delightful 2-player game?
It is. Yeah.
With an equally delightful theme.
It is. I love the theme. I love Jack the Ripper.
So Mr. Jack is a 2-player asymmetrical. Not to get too into it, because you guys don't want us to get into it. I guess I'm all hyper about that now.
That's right.
But no, so Mr. Jack is a 2-player game. 1 player plays Jack the Ripper, 1 player plays the detective, and Jack the Ripper assumes the identity of one of the tokens on the board. So maybe Sherlock Holmes, maybe Watson, maybe another player. And basically what you're doing is you're going to be moving the tokens with these kind of action selection tiles, and you're able to move tokens in different ways, away from lampposts, and you can turn off lampposts. Basically, you're trying to get tokens out of the light or into the light in order to, at the end of the round, ask Mr. Jack, hey, can you be seen? And if Mr. Jack can be seen or cannot be seen, then that will tell you which characters Mr. Jack is or isn't. And so you want to find Mr. Jack within 8 rounds if you're the detective, or if you're Mr. Jack, you want to escape in that time. And the reason I love this game is that there's not too many games in our hobby that are just like instantly understandable to non-hobby gamers. And I feel like this has enough chess elements. This game is incredibly intuitive, where you're just like, oh yeah, I understand what I want to do. If I want to be the detective or if I want to be Mr. Jack, I just know exactly what I'm trying to do here. And honestly, I do love this simple choice that you have, where there's 4 actions available to you, and depending on which player you are, you choose one action, and the other player chooses 2 more, and then you get the leftover action. There's 4 actions available. And I just love, again, me and choices. I just get really excited about a certain kind of slick choice in a game. And having that choice of, oh, there's 4 actions available. If I don't take that one, then they can use that against me really well. So I better reserve that. But now they're going to get 2 really good actions in a row, and that might mess up my whole thing. Really good. Mr. Jack. I really love it.
It's a great pick. Good pick.
Awesome.
Super. My number 79 is a game about the American National Park System, and that is Parks. I love the game of Parks.
You know I haven't played Parks?
Really? Oh, wow. We have to remedy that. It's a great little game. It's you beautiful artwork. It really appeases the senses. It's got nice little tactile wooden bits. It's got nice little trays that hold the bits. So like the presentation of this game is really exceptional, and it's got this kind of neat. I think the dice are called this as the ratchet mechanism, where like you can go so far, but you can't go backwards. Like you can go as far as you want along this path, and you can take the little goods. It's very simple. You're just trying to collect sunshine or water or forest or mountain tokens, and you're trying to exchange those for the symbols that are on park cards. You're just trying to like fulfill contracts. But this neat system where you have 2 workers as well. A lot of the games you only have 1. But here you have these 2, and so you can kind of move them. You get to choose, like, which one do I want to move up? Do I want to move the guy in front or the guy in back? If I move the guy in back, it's a little bit more crowded. But if I move the guy in front, then I can like get to those prime spots first. And so there's an interesting. It just it really hits. It's short, but it goes over really well. Parks.
Okay, yeah, I am excited to try it because I love that. Like, I just call it down the river mechanic because that's what it is in the GZ. You're going down a river, but yeah, I love that kind of chicken game you're playing of passing over all sorts of cool things just so that you can get the really cool thing, but then have you calculated poorly. My number 79, Small World.
Wow.
So this is a blast from the past. Putting together this list had a lot of games I've gotten rid of since, but then they just emerged for me as I was doing this pub meeple, selecting one game over another, and it was just like, no, this game is still solid in my heart. This is kind of one of the first games as I got into the hobby. One of the first games I introduced you to. When I was first getting into the hobby, the only other game I really knew of was Catan, but otherwise it was Risk, right? And so this was kind of the first Risk-like game that I had encountered when I came to the hobby, but it took everything away that I hate about Risk. Dice or card play or just this kind of hunkering down and just getting a bunch of troops in an area and then trying to just go for it. This just gives you a certain limited number of troops of a particular faction. The factions are determined by an ability and like a fantasy race, and they're combined together randomly. And then they kind of have these special abilities that they can use in terms of as they're going across the map, maybe just dropping in on different territories, or the way that they take over territories might be more advantageous, this kind of thing. But basically, you're trying to control different areas and conquer different places. But what I loved about it was that it was deterministic. It was just, I have this number, you have that number, I defeat that number. And so I move on in, and away you go, get out of here. And I thought that was just brilliant. And the economy in the game, where it's all about getting the most money, and there's money available in different territories, and there's money that you're putting down on these different races and classes of tribes that you're able to pick up, and making them more attractive to other players, because throughout the game you're going to have to retire a race and then get a new one into the game. And I thought just everything was so slick and smooth and unique, and there's not a whole lot of fumbling or bumbling, or again, another intuitive game that really welcomed me well into the hobby and that I had a lot of fun with, and also infuriation which a good area control game should have the ability to make you angry.
That's a great pick. This is not in my top 100. I do really like this game. The one thing for me is I would play this game with somebody who's played it before and knows it well. But this game is difficult to explain, I find.
Okay.
Only because there's so many different options. And every time a new race comes out, you need to be like, okay, here's what the elves do. But they can also fly. And so now you need to explain like what flying does and what elves do. And then what do the dwarves do? But then also what does the plains dwarves do? And what do the, all the different combinations. For me, I think that's the only reason why this game doesn't come to the table that much, even though I still own it and I still enjoy it.
Right. Well, and the other thing about too that does make it more appealing to get to the table is just the art and the colors and the theme and the typical Days of Wonder production of this makes it a really attractive game on the table.
Cool. Well, my 78 is a game that is part of a trilogy. The other games may or may not appear later on this list, but this is Architects of the West Kingdom.
Wow, we got a trilogy on our hands, folks.
That's right. So Architects of the West Kingdom, a great little...
All three of them on this list? I wonder.
We'll see.
Okay.
So Architects, what I love about it, Architects has this really interesting mixture of worker placement and press your luck. So there's like a spot, like let's say the forest, where you go and you put one worker and you get one wood. But then the second time when you put a worker on that spot, well, now you're getting 2 wood because you got 2 workers there. And so you can, when you're placing 5 workers on there, like now you're getting this ton of wood from going to this forest. But eventually your opponent is going to be like, I can't let him get that much. That's too much. So he's going to arrest all your guys and like take them off of that spot. And so there's this interesting kind of like tug of war between like, okay, I'm going to put 1 guy. You're going to do anything about that? No? Okay, 2 guys. Oh, okay, 3. And like just sort of pushing your opponent until finally they're like, no. I've got to arrest your guys. This is crazy. And then you can get them back. But your opponent gets money if he manages to bring them to prison and to sell them back to prison. He gets, victory points and money for that. And so you maybe try to break them out before he gets them back. And so there's this really interesting just connection. And then the general theme that ties the West Kingdom series together, which is sort of virtue and corruption. So during the game, you can choose to be like a really bad person, but then you get to go to the black market spots. So there's certain worker placement spots that only you can go to, and they're very powerful. But if you are virtuous, you can contribute to building the cathedral, and that's how you get a lot of victory points. And if you're a wicked person, the church doesn't want your money or your blood money from whatever mischievous deed you did to get that. And murder. And so sometimes you might so try to be wicked at the beginning of the game, and then try to become more virtuous as the game goes along, so that by the end of it you can contribute to the castle. So it's just a really cool change up on a worker placement game.
I've always found corruption mechanics in games icky, because I've always felt like I don't get into role playing in my normal Euro games too much, but that's one mechanism where I feel like it crosses a line for me, where I just don't want to do bad things in a game. I want to do good things. But then when we were playing Paladins, which also is in this trilogy and has that corruption mechanic, I just went for it, and it was a heap of fun.
That's right.
It was a heap of fun. So yeah, really, really good way to kind of balance out the game. Alrighty, so my number 78 is... I don't think you've ever played this. I don't know. Dungeon Pets.
No, I have not.
Okay, so my old username on Board Game Geek was DPet1. And it was always a joke of was Dungeon Pets your favorite game or something? But my name is Daniel Petapa, so right. Pet. So anyway, number 1 fan of Dungeon Pets. But here's why I like Dungeon Pets, and this is going to be similar to my next pick on my list. It's just... I've always been drawn to heavy Euro games ever since I got into the hobby, but I've always also been repelled by them. There's been this barrier to entry for Euro games, and that's why you're going to see a lot of warm-up games, family games, medium weight games on this list of top 100, and not as much heavier games, because I do find that's hard to get to the table. I need to refresh on the rules a lot of the time. I sometimes don't have time to do that, and so when it comes time for a game night, I go for games that are a bit easier to learn on the fly or relearn again, and so heavier games don't get a lot of love. But I find that when a Euro game has a theme that kind of helps you get into the mechanisms and kind of guides you along, I can really get into that. And Dungeon Pets is a game like this for me, where you are getting ownership of these little cute creature pets, and they're these like dials, these cardboard dials that have different attributes on them, like different levels of food that they have or need or require, different states of poop emergency that they're in, and basically you're trying to like dial them up, play the right cards to give them the right things in the right climate that they need to grow into the best creature they can be, but you want to sell them off at the right time so that they don't kind of expire or like grow too old or whatever the case may be. And so just the theme of what you're doing really helps you understand the mechanisms of what you're actually supposed to be doing and playing in this game. But don't be fooled. This is a real kind of like tight economic game at its heart with a really cutesy theme. And you can play with younger players, but you definitely got to handhold them a little bit along the way. But yeah, just a really fun game to get into. But it is long and it's immersive and it is brain burnery. So it is a little deceptive because the theme is super cutesy.
Yeah, I've seen this one on like different stores a lot of times, and I look at the cover and I see like this kind of cutesy art, and then I see CGE on the box, and then I'm very confused. So yeah, I get
you
that.
won't be fooled. You won't be fooled.
My next one is a 2-player only game by a small little company called Pencil First Games, and that is Skulk Hollow. So Skulk Hollow is a 2-player only asymmetrical game where one player plays a bunch of little fox princes and princesses and archers and knights, and the other player plays this giant monster. One's an eagle, one's a stone golem thing, whatever. There's different like monsters, and it's got this interesting thing where the monster starts out way more powerful than the foxes. Like the monster has all these huge abilities, and the foxes are tiny, and they're like trying to stab you with little swords and so on. But as the foxes like crawl onto the monster's body, which is like this separate board off to the side, they can like disable parts of the monster. Like they can hit him in his arm, and now his arm doesn't work, and so he can't use his like punch ability or whatever. And so as the game goes on, it kind of like swings in the fox's favor, and so there's this kind of nice like ebb and flow of like, you start off with this really powerful monster, but by the end you're like, I can't use anything, and they're like crawling all over you, and you're like trying to rip them out of your hair.
What a cool theme.
It is.
What a cool theme. I've been drawn to this game. I haven't gotten a chance to play it yet. But
Okay.
like, really cool theme. Reminds me of that old PlayStation game, Shadow of the Colossus.
Right.
Where you're this little kid guy and you're climbing up these big giant beasts and stabbing them in their rune spots. It looks cool. It looks cool.
It's a great game. Yeah, really like it.
77. So there's another heavy Euro game. This is Terra Mystica.
Okay.
So Terra Mystica, big fan of this game. And once again, fairly complicated game. Lots of like deep thinky Euro mechanisms going on here. Lots of pieces. You open the box, you're like, what the hell am I going to do with all these pieces? But again, for me, the theme of just being this kind of fantasy race that wants to terraform certain land types into your preferred land type in order for you to build your kind of metropolis on really helped me in figuring out what I was trying to do, what I would like to do while I'm playing this game. The reason why this is on this list is this game is never going to leave my collection. I've talked about it before in a previous video, but when I first got this game, I brought it to a party, and they were playing like one of those like dice rolling, like zombie dice type games, Chupacabra or something, and I was like, no, we need to play a better game than this. And so I proposed that we play a full complement game of Terra Mystica where everybody teamed up, so 10 of us could play. So people were in partners, and we played Terra Mystica, 2 players per character, 5 characters.
What were you thinking?
And we played a full round of this, and it went relatively well. And so this just goes down for me as just like, it is a grail of that moment in my gaming history where I successfully played Terra Mystica as a party game.
That's weird. I almost thought that this game would be a lot higher on your list. There was a time when I feel like this game was in like your top 5.
Well, you know what? I really do like it, but again, it's the accessibility to the table, and it's the kind of relearn the amount of time that takes to play the game. Again, I think I need to build up my habit again of playing heavier games, and so we got to get back. You got to help me keep on.
Sure, I've never actually played Terra Mystica, so
no, you have.
I've never played Terra Mystica. No.
What?
No, never.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
That can't be true.
I've never played it.
At Father Matt's?
Nope.
With Father Greg Smith Windsor?
Nope.
What?
This man knows a lot of priests.
It comes with the job. Anyway, things I really like about Terra Mystica are that the way that you score points, it's not ipso facto that you're just going to score points based on building a particular type of building or making a kind of connection. Every round has a way that you score. So like a round has a little tile dedicated to it, and it'll be like, if you build a city this round, you'll get points. But other rounds, when you build a city, you don't get points for doing it. Mm-hmm. So it's really cool and clever that you want to time out when you want to do things, but in order to do certain things, you have to build other building types first, because everything is on your player board, all these different kind of building types. And when you build them, you uncover resources that you'll be able to collect at the end of round or beginning of round, I can't remember. So you're going to want to do things in certain orders, but when it doesn't line up well, you kind of want to do some things in a certain order, and it might not line up the way that you're hoping for to get the maximum amount of points. So you better make sure that you're efficient in how you do all this stuff so that you get the points. So yeah, so I love that about Terra Mystica.
My number 76 is another 2-player game. And this is there's only 16 cards, I think, in this whole, 18 cards in the whole of the game. And that's Air, Land, and Sea. So Air, Land, and Sea is but it's a beautiful, there's not much to it, but there's a lot of little complexity to it. And so it's just you play a card, your opponent plays a card, and what you're trying to do is you're trying to get control 2 of the various air, land, or sea, and by having the most power in them. But the first thing that's neat is like the 6 cards are the best cards, but they don't do anything. They're just 6 power. But like the 1 card is weak, but it has a really neat effect. So it's like, oh, well, I'll play this that could really change the game, even though I'm kind of sacrificing control in this area by only playing a 1 card. But the really cool thing about this game is that you have to choose when you've lost. Like when this round, like sometimes you just get a hand and you're like, yep, I don't think I'm really that confident that at the end of this I can really win this. And so I'm just going to literally like lose the battle, but hopefully win the war by retreating early. And so you get some points, but not the full points that you would get. So you get 6 points if you fully win a round. But if I leave early, you might only get like 2 points. And so then I play another round, and hopefully that next round is better. And so it just has that's such a really interesting mechanic. Very few games have that. This kind of like, I'm going to get out now and just play another round and see where it goes.
Almost like a folding mechanic.
Exactly.
Like you get to bow out. Mm-hmm. Nice. No, that sounds really good. Again, a game that I haven't played. That's cool.
Super good.
I like really unique kind of things that you see in other kind of mainstream games or card games that get inserted nicely into a modern hobby game. Okay, my next game, fond memories for you and I, Village.
Wow.
Here it is. And so Father Greg forced me to get rid of Village because he thought it was a hunk of trash when we played it once together. That's not true. I introduced it to Father Greg, and I don't know what went wrong, but there was some mechanism or the way that we were pulling the meeples out of the bag or the cubes, we couldn't seed the board properly, and like it just kind of gummed up and the game broke. And I don't know what we did, but it just kind of turned me off the game, and I realized, oh wait, but I really love this game, and that was just a fluke occurrence. So why did I do that? The reason why I love Village is that this is probably the game that has one of the best themes for a Euro game, not relying on anything like cool, right? Like there's Euro games like Blood Rage and Rising Sun that try and like they make it cool with big monsters, or even we played Dogs of War last night. There's these big bust miniatures that are really fancy, but this game is just a Euro game through and through with the coolest theme ever. It's just a simple kind of farming village, and you are just, you can go out to the far country and kind of adventure and discover some things, or maybe members of your family can go off to become monks in the monastery, or maybe you're going to pursue politics, and the game is played over generations, and so your family line is either like, some of them are farmers, some of them are politicians, some of them are monks, this kind of thing. But workers that you use to go and do different things in the game, like going to the market and selling goods, or purchasing goods for trade and this kind of thing, the workers will eventually die. There's a graveyard on your player board that you're putting these workers in, and they're occupying these grave spaces because they've died. Now a new generation is going on, and so this whole great idea of kind of keeping your worker balance in check as workers are dying off and new workers are coming in, and it just oozes with just this kind of like grassroots, toes in the sand, just lived life. These people are living their life to the full, and you just feel it. Maybe I'm giving the theme too much credit.
Nothing like living your life to the full by building one cart and then dying away. That's living life to the full in the medieval age, but yes.
Okay. But that's why I love it. And really solid mechanisms built in here. You're going to have a good time. If you're a Eurogamer, you're going to love this game. There's nothing not to like about it.
Yes, it is a great game. Has a great theme. I really love Euro games with good themes that I can get into, and Village is that one, and I may talk about it later.
Okay, good.
Yes,
I'd be sad if you didn't.
I really love Village. Great. My next is perhaps stereotypically as a priest. It's a game about building stained glass windows, and that is Sagrada. So Sagrada is just a beautiful game. It features these little translucent dice, and like the dice look like stained glass, so it has a beautiful aesthetic to it. And then it's just a puzzle. It's a great kind of just puzzling around, figuring out where do these little bits fit into. You can't put the same number next to the same number. You can't put the same color next to the same color. And just trying to puzzle that out and trying to pick things trying to meet certain goals. You're trying to get, no repeating numbers in the same column, or you're trying to get as many purples as you can in this particular window. Just a really, every time I'm done this game, I look at my window and I'm just like, this looks beautiful. I like what I have made, and I just like looking at that. And I've played this game. This is on for sure my top 5 most played games.
Wow.
So I've played this game a ton. I mean, it's a short game, and it goes over pretty easily. But yeah, I've played this game a ton.
Yeah, I would stab my eyes out with a golf pencil if I played this game that many times. I struggle with Sagrada. I just find it tedious and it just gets under my skin. Just this again, I find the constraints too tight for trying to get the dice where you want it to go and how you gotta work things out. And I'm just not efficient in those games, so I find myself just lagging behind severely when other players just kind of have a brain for that kind of spatial situation.
Right. Yeah, if you love spatial puzzles, though, Sagrada is perfect.
Yeah. Not to take too much thunder away from your pick.
No, please do.
So, my number 75 is Village. That's what I wrote down. I wrote Village twice.
You loved it so much, you put it in twice.
But really, as I was comparing my list, it's Dream Home.
Okay.
Have you played Dream Home?
I've not. Nope.
Oh, you haven't played Dream Home. Okay, so this is... I realize that I do enjoy drafting games quite a bit. So this is a simple card drafting game, fun for the whole family. I've had lots of good experiences giving this game to families. And so it's a very simple card drafting game. And here's why I love it. Because you have 2 rows of cards, and there's cards that are rooms of your home. So like kitchen rooms, living rooms, bedrooms, basement, there's different room types. And they score for having sets. So like if you have 3 living room cards, you're going to get more points than if you have 2 living room cards together. And this kind of thing. But then there's also these like specialty cards or like workers, different bonuses, these kinds of things that allow you to play cards differently in your home or hold a card over for later or build on top of an empty room, which you're not usually allowed to do. These kinds of things. But when you draft, you have to draw 2 of those cards in a row at the same time. So you're stuck. If you want the card that's on the top, you're stuck with the card that's on the bottom. If you want the card that's on the bottom, you need to get the card that's on the top. And I really enjoy just that forced decision of, here's 2 cards. You probably only want one of them, but what are you going to do with the other one? How are you? And sometimes there's 2 that are really good. And the thing that kind of adds to the tension that I really enjoy is that there's a first player token, which allows you to draft first in the next round. It's a nice big chunky orange house, and it's set up as the top card of the row on the end, and so you can just get 1 card and the house and be the first player the next turn. And so that is just a brilliant, nice little decision there. Makes for just what should be just a simple, fluffy card drafting game, no better than Sushi Go. It just elevates it to the next level.
I would like to play this game. I like a simple card drafter. I like a pleasant theme. I could see myself really getting into that one.
The tiebreaker is excellent because every now and then on the cards there's little children's hands sticking out of different places and like limbs and things, like the bottom of a bunk bed or like, and so you count how many you have of those in your house at the end of the game. And then you're the winner.
Wow. My number 74 is a game that is very popular, and perhaps because of its popularity, maybe receives some shade thrown at it. People are like, it's not that good. But it's at least worthy of a 74, and that's Wingspan.
Wow. I don't think it gets shade. Does it
really?
get shade?
Are you kidding me? I mean, it won like a lot of awards the year it came out, so there's a lot of people who are
and
like,
it sold like more copies than any board game ever or something.
Right, but there's like a certain like group that's like, no, it's not that good. Like, come on, it's not like the best game of the year or that. Like, it's not anywhere in that conversation. But it is. The art is fantastic. It's got little, like, I mean, every bird, like if you're at all into birds, and I'm not, but it's just got great like artwork and just like the kind of engine building mechanism. You put a bird in, you get to do everything in that column. You get to lay a bunch of eggs, or you get to pick up a bunch of cards, or you get to get a bunch of food, or whatever the case might be. It's fairly simple, but it has this nice like engine building trait about it. And I mean, one of my favorite things about it is just like even the flavor text, like the little card art at the bottom. It has like a little fact about the bird, where it lives, or this bird eats snails, and you're like, oh, that's cool. So like when it's not my turn and somebody else is playing and they're like getting all these eggs, I'm just like reading cool facts about my birds. And for me, that's just like one thing I just love about the game. I really enjoy that I think you're trying to meet different goals. You're trying to get, I don't know, all the birds that have colors in their name, like the red-breasted pheasant or something like that. And so I'm like looking at all these cool birds, and I'm like, I've never heard of half of these. And anyways, I just think it's a fascinating game. I really like the presentation and the artwork of it.
Yeah, so the thing that I really like about Wingspan, and again, my common theme, is when a complex mechanism gets stripped down to its basic parts. And so this has the simplest kind of tech tree I've ever seen in my life. So your player board itself is kind of, if you think about it, a little bit of a tech tree, where you're playing cards down in these different areas, and the further you go along in these areas, the more eggs that you're able to get when you do that action, the more food you're able to get, the more. And so it's just this nice, simple, but like it costs quite a bit to kind of go down the line to kind of build up that area. So you're kind of forced to build up in one or two of the areas, not all three. And I like just having to make those kind of tight choices. Wingspan.
It's a good game.
All right, my 74, Third and Taxis.
Wow.
Yeah, man. Here it
Wow.
goes. Here it is. Have you played this?
No, this is an old classic.
This is classic. And that's why I love it, is that I'm really drawn to Euro games with that old late 90s, early 2000s Euro style, where the art is kind of muted and the characters, or like in this case the kind of cabbies and things, or the trains that you're using to deliver the mail, you're making postal routes around like Germany or something.
Right, yes. Very interactive theme. Something everyone's interested in is delivering postage all across the wonderful nation of Germany.
But that's what I love. Like, that's what I love about board games. I love boring themes. And that's going to sound funny. And I'm not being facetious. Like, I do like just simple things brought to life in these subtle ways. And so this is kind of like when you get bored of Ticket to Ride and you want something a little bit more cerebral, Third and Taxis fits that spot. It's not, the theme isn't quite as fun. It's not as in your face, but you're still doing similar things in that you're trying to build route connections between different cities, and you do that by drawing cards, kind of rummy style, like Ticket to Ride, where you're searching for the right cards you need to kind of build a route out, and then you're basically racing towards majorities of having your kind of post offices set up in certain regions. And so you'll get points for setting them up in all of the different regions, or like set them up in certain spaces in a particular region, or, so you're just trying to kind of weigh out what certain things are worth point-wise and trying to beat the other players to those things, because the points that you get for completing certain tasks decrease as you go on. A pile of chits with points on them, and you're pulling them out. The most infuriating feeling is going after something and watching as players ahead of you deplete that stack down, and so now you're only getting 1 point for what you could have gotten 5 points for, and this kind of thing. But I really like Third and Taxis for a mellow, more subdued kind of alternative to Ticket to Ride.
My number 73 is a game that was a sequel to a game about national parks, and that's Trekking the World. So Trekking the World was a sequel to Trekking the National Parks. And there's a new one on Kickstarter called Trekking Through History, I believe, which is like a time travel sort of kind of thing.
Now that excites me.
But anyways, if you're especially after the past 2 years, not many people have traveled. But if you want to get back out and you want to see the world, you want to go to the Eiffel Tower, you want to go see the Great Barrier Reef,
play this game.
Yeah, Trekking the World, man, it solves that travel itch in a hurry.
I'm sure the experience is comparable.
Very similar. Yes. So you're going around the world. It's a very kind of, it is for me a step up from Ticket to Ride. If somebody was like, I played Ticket to Ride, want something just a little bit more complex, like cool, why don't we try either Trekking the National Parks or Trekking the World. I think Trekking the World is a little bit just neat. The whole world kind of maybe interests me more than the national parks. But you're going out and you're just picking up cards. You're playing the cards. The cards have two things. They either move you along or they serve to be like a resource that you need to like cash in to claim the sort of like the contract of that particular spot that you need. You need 2 footprints and 3 cameras or whatever, and so you're just trying to go in, and then the board has all these cubes on it, and so when you go to a spot, you take that cube, which is like a souvenir that you got from that place, and if you get the most white souvenirs, that's like the most clothing or something, then you get extra victory points. So it's a fairly light kind of family weight game. I pulled this out with families. And it goes over well. It's just a great experience. The art is, once again, really beautiful. It really just pops. It's a great little way to tour the world while you're at home.
When I was living in London, I had the pleasure to play test this game when it was just in prototype form. It's fascinating to see a game go from just sort of like a printout on a piece of paper to like a real game.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Good stuff. Okay, so my next game. You're all going to love this pick. You're going to say, this is the best pick ever. I think it's true. Welcome to.
Okay.
Welcome to is fantastic.
It is.
I maybe I'm over-exaggerating people's love for this game, but I feel like everybody should love this game. And I think people talk about it all the time, and I think it's for good reason. I didn't think I liked roll and rights or flip and rights, and this game started to change my mind. It's the game that really started to get the ball rolling on... No, Daniel, you actually do like flipping rights. You think, and rolling rights, you like this genre. And already we've seen a few of these on my list, Cartographers, Trails of Tucana, and this continues the legacy, and this is what started it all for me. So what I love about Welcome To is that you have your own sheet of paper, and it has just rows of houses. And you are basically trying to fill in those rows of houses with street numbers. And just like any normal street, the numbers can skip all sorts of numbers, and it makes no sense why house number 23 is next to house 52, whatever the case may be. Now again, there's a certain number of house numbers that are in these deck of cards, and so a house number is going to be paired with an ability, which is on the back side of these cards, and then there's going to be 3 options of these combos, and so you'll flip 3 cards over, and then everybody will have the opportunity to choose one of those combinations to fill in their board with. What I love is just this, again, this sort of puzzle that you play with yourself of, okay, I'm dealing with a 5, so I kind of, want to put it closer to the beginning of a row of houses. But if I put it at the 5th house, that means I need to get 1, 2, 3, and 4 in order to complete this row of houses. So maybe I'll put it in the 3rd house, and so then give me some breathing room. But then the more you do that on one end, the less room you have to play with on the higher end of the house numbers. And so that's the game for me, really, is just like trying to maximize and guess how you can fit these houses in. Now again, the abilities are things where it'll kind of save you from that.
I'm surprised that this outranks Trails of Tucana and Cartographers for you.
Yeah, and I think it's because it was first.
Okay.
I think it's because it was first. Yeah. And I would, if I owned it, I would play it with new players before I played those other 2 games.
It is a very pleasant, accessible roll and write, for sure. Yep. Or flip and write, whatever you call it. Something and write.
Flip and write!
My number 72 is... I really love this game. This game has a lot of paths to victory. It's got a lot of different elements in it. And I fear with trembling every time I have to explain it. And that is Maracaibo.
Wow! How many times have you had to explain it?
Every time I pull it out. Because every time I'm always like, what am I doing? There's a lot going on in this game. You're trying to combat and fight for France and England and Spain to like take over the Caribbean, but then you're also trying to send your explorer through the Amazon, and then you're also trying to buy cards, and you're also trying to upgrade your ship, and you're also trying to gain influence, and you're also trying to do like all of these things, and all of them are cool, but you can only ever do like 1 or 2 of them, and so it's just a great game with like lots of different paths. The mechanics in this game, I think, are really, really good. It's got this... It's kind of in... like it came after Great Western Trail, of course, Alexander Pfister. And so it's got this idea where you go around the board, but like if you're the first person to get there, if you get all the way around back to the island of Cuba, then like everyone joins you. And so if you like race around the island really, really fast... somebody else might only be like halfway, but then they have to like zip back to the starting point and like start a new round around the islands, and so it just works. It really sings. It's got a lot going on. This is not an easy game. It takes a good half hour or more to explain, but once you play it, it's really, really good.
Is this the game where like the whole board is a rondel, sort of thing?
Sort of, yes. At least the main part of it.
Okay.
There's other things happening around it, but yeah.
Okay, that's cool. I like rondels. Mm-hmm. That's nice. All right, my number 72. We're round in the corner to the end of this list, folks. Via Magicka.
What?
Formerly known as Rise of Augustus.
Okay. Still not helping.
So this is a game from Hurricane Games, and it is re-implementation of Rise of Augustus, which was kind of a bingo-esque game. And so Via Magicka is a similar game with a magical theme. And so basically you have these elemental monsters and creatures that you are summoning. And basically all they are is they're these big cards, and on the top of the cards they have a certain requirement to be sort of fulfilled. And they need certain types of elements, like, they need fire, or they need water, or they need spirit, grass, plant, whatever, nature. They need these sorts of things. And so there's all these tokens in a bag, and you pull out tokens from the bag on a turn. And if you have the right elemental or creature in front of you that requires that thing, you have these crystals, and you can place a crystal on the space. So just like bingo. So basically a number is called, and you put one of your dabbers, your diamonds, on these spaces on your card, and then once you fulfill, it's a race to fulfilling like 7 of these creatures. But they also give like abilities or bonuses when you complete them, and victory points at the end of the game for completing them. For being bingo, this has way more depth than you would expect from a game whose core is bingo.
Wow.
And it's just a really fun game for me, because you do feel clever when you kind of maximize the creatures that you're kind of going in for. So for instance, a lot of the creatures, they'll make it so that when you finish them, a certain element is always a wild for you. So like you finish one, and now every time a water is pulled, that can be whatever you want. And you finish another one, then whenever you use fire, that's also wild. And so you can feel really clever by kind of building up your engine in a sense, so that you're kind of ready to fill in more cards more quickly. And I just really enjoy it. Pretty simple basic concept, but it just brings it to life, breathes some fresh air into it. And again, doesn't overstay its welcome. It's a very quick game as well. So Via Magicka, I recommend it. I think you'll have a lot of fun with it.
My last game, 71.
This is it!
Of this, for this episode, 71. This is a game by Vladimir Suchi, Pulsar 2849.
You sneak this out of the list, you sneaky son of a gun.
I did. I played this game while I was making while I was still ranking my top 100.
Yeah.
So it
I
kind
don't
of
know
came
if this
in
is
at
legal.
the end. It's legal. It's fine. There's a lot of games that kind of force you and pull you in different directions, where you want to try to do lots of different things. And then I feel like there's other games where you just kind of want to pick a strategy and just kind of run with it and just like see how far you can get just doing one thing. And I generally prefer the games, I think, that stretch me in lots of different ways. But Pulsar 2849, I think, is a game where you're just kind of want to pick a direction and go in it. You could like either explore as much of the galaxy as possible, or you could harvest as many pulsars as possible, or you could build as many satellites as possible. But basically, you're picking one of those 3, and you're just kind of like investing in it, because each one gets better the more you do of it. The more space you explore, the more points you get. The more pulsars you generate, like the more points you're going to get per turn. Satellites are going to get like extra turns, like extra abilities that. And so it's just a really great game. It doesn't look surprisingly great. When I look at pictures of it, I'm always like, this game looks okay, I guess. But when you actually kind of see it set up before you, and it's got this neat kind of technology sort of tree aspect where, like in the first round, certain technologies are available to you, but then as the game progresses, you can buy certain technologies, but they're not available to you in the beginning. And so, but each, technology benefits kind of one of those 3 basic strategies, I feel like. And so, it's just a great game, a nice sort of, medium heavy Euro that I really, really enjoy. I've only played this once, but I think it will be on my list for a little while at least.
Yeah, I want to try. Like, there's tons of games on this section of your list that I'm just like, yes, I want to try Maracaibo. I want to play this Pulsar 2052,000. I want to play another one that was on your list that I can't think of right now.
I mean, the only thing is, like, the theme is, it's ambitious to think that in 800 and whatever years we're going to be harvesting pulsars. That's,
I think with Elon Musk on the game, man, like he'll still be alive. First of all, and then he'll be leading the charge to all this Pulsar stuff. Okay, my 71st favorite board game of all time for the year 2022 is The Mind.
Okay.
And like, here's the thing that I'm realizing as I'm talking about this list is that games that make my list, I'm a bit of a people pleaser. Mm-hmm. So like, games that make my list are the games that I've had a lot of fun sharing with people. Because really, the tagline, if you see the beginning of this video, the tagline for this channel is fun stuff about board games. It should really be sharing the love and joy of board games. Actually, I'm just going to change it. I'm just going to change it because that's really what the heart of this channel started as. And I just didn't write that for some reason. And I just it was like one of those filling space, and then I just left it for over a year. But when I think of The Mind, I think this is the game that encapsulates that idea of sharing the love and joy of board games. That board games can bring love and joy into a home. Mm-hmm. The Mind does that so well because you give people who are just Jack John yakking, people who are beaking each other, people who just won't shut up, you give them a challenge. You say, you're going to have cards from 1 to 100, dealt in a random order. The first round, we're just going to deal 1 card to each player. And your goal is to play those cards face up in ascending order without saying a thing or giving any sort of hints or clues to one another. Mm-hmm. And so people are forced to deduce, based on nothing, when they should play the card that's in their hand. So Father Greg has a 22. And I have a 62. He better play his card first. But he doesn't know.
I'm waiting. I got a 22, man. I can wait all day.
Oh, you can't wait too long, though. Because then 23 comes along and plays before you, and bam!
That's right.
And so I haven't played a game of this without there being some sort of eruption of laughter that happens around the table. And so I just really love this game for, whenever you say, okay, don't talk, don't laugh. Of course you're going to laugh. So people are giggling and being weird right from the get-go, you know? So this is a really fun challenge to put before people. This is a really fun thing to do. Now again, granted, I'm not going to want to play this game all the time.
Right.
Myself, it's definitely more of a gimmick game than anything else. But what a gimmick. What a gimmick.
It is. It really, it does what you say. It can be a bit, I'll say broken if you play with really intense gamers who just if you have a really good interior metronome, if you're just okay, everyone, just every second count 1, and just play the card, you could get through pretty easily. But I would be people
spoiled to that. I would ruin that because I do not have a great internal metronome.
But I have some friends who the first second they'll play a 30 on the table. You're what on earth are you doing?
And that's awesome.
And their response will be, good. Well, you guys were taking forever. And you're I was only counting up to 5 in my head. How are you already at 30?
Yeah, I love that. I love that in the game.
It's yeah.
Yeah, people just you get a real sense of how people's sort of brain works a little bit of how they sort of correlate numbers and the spaces between numbers. It's oh wow, you have a weird sense of how far the distance is between 35 and 42.
That's right.
That's strange. Or maybe I'm strange. Anyway, party people, that was our favorite board game of all times from 80 to 71. We'll be back at you with another section of this list. We're having a lot of fun. Thank you for engaging in the comments, for letting us know what you think. Continue to let us know what you think. So, party people, like the video. That really helps. Subscribe to the channel. That really helps. Really, if you really want to take a chance on the channel and just share this video on Facebook or something and say, hey, I kind of like these goofballs. That's what you can put as the caption. Hey, comma, I kind of like these goofballs, exclamation mark, or period, depending on your mood. But that'd be great. I just want to, again, share the love and joy of board games. So, Father Greg, we good?
We're good.
All right. Until next time, party people, have the best day.